So this is Geffner. So Geffner is my favorite out of all the varieties I grow. I like Geffner for its flavor and also its texture. I think it has the best texture of the varieties I have tasted. The texture is kind of more like one solid piece. It doesn't really break up in segments, and it's really nice and firm. So it's one of my favorites for that reason, and the flavor is excellent too. It's not just purely sweet. There's a bit more complexness to the flavor, and it's also one variety I would say that keeps really well in the refrigerator. It doesn't ship well just because of its thin skin and the bumpiness of it, but once you pick a right fruit and you put it in the refrigerator, it actually gets a bit leathery and it holds up quite well, better than African Pride. It's one that holds up really well in the refrigerator, surprisingly. Considering how thin skinned it is and how badly it ships, it's one that can sit in the refrigerator for, I had some that sat in the refrigerator for like a month and they were still fine after they softened up. They softened up and I put it in the fridge and they were still good after a month, while something like an African Pride, they don't last too long in the refrigerator before all the flesh becomes like kind of spotty brown and black. You know, these guys develop a really nice kind of leathery skin once it's in the fridge. So African Pride, this is my favorite variety out of all of them. I don't really grow that many variety, but the ones I do grow, I think I've captured most of the flavor profile between African Pride, Geffner, and Lisa. This is African Pride. These are probably the largest one right now compared to all my other varieties. They're looking good, but I am beginning to see some scale issues here and there, and it seems like the ants are kind of getting to them. So maybe I need to kind of spray for the ants a bit before they start forming a bit more of these black scales on the fruits. But yep, this is African Pride. It's like I mentioned before, Geffner is my favorite variety, but African Pride is the sweetest variety. It is very sweet compared to the other varieties I grow. In terms of sweetness, it's usually African Pride, Geffner, and then Lisa. Okay, this is my Lisa fruits, and it looks like the skin is beginning to turn red. I get a lot of misshapen fruits from it, and sometimes when I pollinate them, it feels like they don't accept pollens from my other varieties that much. So I'm not sure if the shape of them is affected by compatibility issues. So quite a few of them out of my varieties right now. There's probably the smallest right now, so they're probably a little bit behind the rest, because these guys do, at least in my area, they kind of seem to flower a little bit later than Geffner and African Pride. In my yard, the first tree to really bloom is Geffner, followed by African Pride, and then followed by Lisa. Lisa is not the sweetest fruit, but I would say it has the most complex taste. Quite a bit of like berry flavors to it. My Lisa at least do develop some really good flavors, but I've had Lisas from other people's tree, and sometimes they're very bland. So Lisa might be one that might benefit more from a much more mature tree, just because it's not the sweetest fruit, but has lots of nice complex flavors. And it has a very kind of chewy kind of, those meat kind of segments come off in pieces, and they're quite firm and chewy. This is an update on my Antimonia. This one was actually given to me as African Pride number 2, but I'm pretty sure it's not. Here's the kind of fruit size. It's beginning to get much larger. So there's an update on them. I noticed a few kind of scales on some of the fruits, so probably kind of a bit of a bad airflow, and maybe ants kind of might be around farming some of these guys. But yeah, it's getting really nice size. I don't really expect this to get ripened until late December, maybe January. And this year's has been pretty behind, so these fruits may not even ripen until January. Nice sized fruit so far. So this is PPC. I have a few grafted branches here and there on separate trees. It's a very interesting looking fruit, as it's probably the closest Antimonia that looks to a sugar apple that I know of. Look at that. And lots of times it could be mistaken for sugar apple, but it's definitely an Antimonia, which is a cross between the Cherimoya and the sugar apple. This is probably, my guess, probably back crossed again with a sugar apple, but it's the closest one in terms of appearance to a sugar apple, and one that does at least grow way better than a sugar apple in our area here in California. Sugar apple trees just don't really grow well, don't really fruit well, and don't really like the winter. So this is PPC. In terms of the taste, I haven't really tasted one that had a perfect pinkness, but lots of people have indicated that it might not be the best tasting Antimonia. So in terms of appearance, it's very kind of cool and sugar apple looking, but in terms of taste, it hasn't had a lot of great reviews on it yet. So hoping to get to try it this year and see how it goes. So this is one of the branches. So this is another PPC. This one's a nice size right now. And there's a few fruits on this branch. And this one's on a separate tree. Here's a few more PPC. And again, this is on not a separate tree, so I have 3 branches on 3 separate trees. So we'll see how it goes and how they will taste. I mean, I'm hoping to get to taste them this year, so looking forward to that. So this is a painter's charlotta, and it's sized up quite nicely since the last time I videoed it. Here's my hand, here's the fruit. I'm not really sure when I expect this to be ripened, so hopefully maybe January, or maybe it kind of sits on the tree a bit longer. I'm not really too sure, but this is a painter's charlotta, one of my branches of it. Here's another painter's charlotta. Again, it's sized up quite nicely. So that's the second large fruit. I do have one more large fruit, so at least I have 3 or 4 chances to get a ripe fruit if nothing gets to it first, no damage or nothing like that. Here's my third one. Another really nice size one. So, wish me luck on this. Hoping to taste this maybe sometime in January. Okay, this is Painter's Chelada.